Vikings have three options when it comes to Kirk Cousins. The first being let him play out his contract and draft the quarterback this year and or next year. Second, you could look to extend him again, which to that I say no. He'll always be a $30+ million cap hit, plus next year, 2023, he'll be 35 years old. The last option is you could look to trade him, but that's going to be the most challenging. Worst case, 23 is his last year, but if you're going to have any shot of trading Kirk Cousins, you need to first negotiate with him before you negotiate with other teams. To get him to waive his no trade clause, you need to have a conversation. Listen, man, we're rebuilding over here. We're going to overhaul the roster, hit the reset button. Next year, you'll be 35. When it's time for your new deal, you'll be 36. You might have one contract left, or even if you decide to do another series of 2-year deals, you only got a few of those before it's time for you to retire. You deserve better than what's about to happen here. We owe you the opportunity to win a championship with a true contender before you go out. I've got two teams that, with you at quarterback, you've got a legit shot of hoisting the Lombardi trophy. The first being the New York Jets, the second, the New England Patriots. Both teams with elite defenses trying to figure out what to do at the quarterback position. What you experienced versus the Giants, our defense being a disaster, you never have to worry about that again. With the Jets, they can't stand Zach Wilson. Had they had consistent quarterback play, they would have made the playoffs. And with the Patriots, you've got the greatest coach of all time. End your career on a high note. Or you could come back here if you want. The defense is going to take at least 2 years to maybe be competent. At running back, we're going to go younger. No more Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison. We have to rebuild the interior offensive line. Do you really want to go through that? No, of course not. Why would you? And don't feel bad. It's not you. It's us. We don't deserve the greatness that you present. It is time for you to spread your wings and fly to a true contender. And once he waives his no trade clause, I go to the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. I present to you Kirk Cousins, 4th in passing yards, 5th in touchdowns. Just needs the right system and he'll flourish. I promise. And with the Jets and the Pats at picks 13 and 14, no shot at Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Even if Chicago decides to trade down from number 1, Indianapolis and Seattle picks 4 and 5, much more attractive. Trade Kirk Cousins, you eat the dead cap hit of nearly $19 million while saving $17.5 million. I believe you can get a first-round pick trading Kirk Cousins, which ultimately helps with the rebuild, getting an additional first-round talent. It's over. Kirk Cousins, 5 years in Minnesota. We've seen enough. In the NFC Championship game, you've got two quarterbacks on rookie deals. Joe Burrow, back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances, also on a rookie deal. It's time. Kirk Cousins, he's a good quarterback, not great, yet he commands great cap hits, which restricts your roster flexibility. Now, the odds that this actually happens, I think is tough because I think Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, I think they'll at least have the internal dialogue to say, okay, should we approach Kirk Cousins in waiving his no trade clause? I don't think they'll extend him. Either he plays out his contract or you trade him and you can be done with it. Now, as far as the defensive coordinator position, the Vikings have requested interviews with Steelers assistant Brian Flores, Saints co-defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, and Seahawks assistant Sean Desai. Flores talked about him last week, would love that hire. Him as head coach in Miami the first year, they ran a 4-3. The last 2 years, a 3-4. Obviously in Pittsburgh, a 3-4 as well, but it shows that Flores is versatile. He's not stuck on one scheme as Ed Donatel was, and that's critical for the usage of Danielle Hunter. I think he's better off in a 4-3, but whatever the Vikings decide to do, even if they go back with a 3-4 again, I trust Brian Flores to come up with a scheme that works best for 99 opposed to I have a one-size-fits-all scheme and damn it, that's what I'm going to run. Now, Ryan Nielsen, that's going to be interesting. He's been running the show for the Saints defensive line for the last 6 years. Now, the last 4 years, the Saints defense total ranked 5th, 7th, 4th, 11th. Now, Dennis Allen, the head coach / defensive coordinator, obviously he deserves the bulk of the credit, but I believe that Nielsen deserves credit as well because the game starts and ends in the trenches. And lastly, Sean Desai, associate head coach and defensive assistant for Seattle. Before that, the defensive coordinator in Chicago. Before that, The safeties coach, also defensive quality control, also in Chicago. Now, Seattle's defense, one of the worst in the league this year, but before you look at Desai, you need to first look at defensive coordinator Clint Hurt, as well as head coach Pete Carroll. Now, the year before that, 2021, in Chicago, no question about it, defensive coordinator Sean Desai was in charge of that defense. Last year, Chicago had the 6th ranked defense, 3rd against the pass. Combine that with having one of the league's worst offenses in Chicago last year, that's very impressive. Matt Eberflus, he came in as the new head coach and decided he wanted his own set of guys. Understandable. So Chicago, they parted ways with Desai. Now, the pass defense for Minnesota, that's where we struggled the most. The idea of Desai as a new defensive coordinator is very enticing. Overall, I like the pool of candidates that the Vikings organization have selected to interview. If I had to rank them, I would say number 1, or really 1A, Brian Flores. 1B, I'm going to go with Ryan Nielsen. And lastly, Sean Desai. We'll see what happens.